on its way. At this time, we're going to bring in a young lady who hopefully becomes a household name after this interview, and someone I'm really excited to talk to because she is at the top of the states, in the top 5. I think last time I checked, top 3 as one of the best goalies in the sport of lacrosse. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in Ava HEDRICH. How are you, Ava? It's nice to see you. Good to see you on the show. We appreciate your time, but certainly your excellence on the lacrosse, is it the field, the pitch? What do you call it there?
For me, it's called the cage, like my net.
The cage. All right. I appreciate that. Coming from a baseball catcher, right?
Mhm.
Someone who gets very little respect. The pitchers get everything. Naturally, when it comes to the sport of lacrosse, I feel like goalies, the lady in the cage like yourself, you're going to be kind of, while you're a featured player, you're also easily forgotten about, and a lot of people can point the finger when if that ball goes through
Mhm.
and into the net. What's the pressure like whenever it's a game like that for you in a match, and you're sitting there and you feel like all eyes are on you when there's a breakaway or there's a penalty shot or anything like that? What's that like? What's going through your mind?
The pressure is pretty intense, especially because as a goalie, you're an individual along with your team. And you're right, like you are that last line of defense. You can even say I'm the first line of offense as well, but you can't let your team down. It's really up to you in those final moments, whether they're in front of my it's called the goalie crease, which is where they can't step in but they can shoot from, or if they're 5 feet, 10 feet back. It's really intense, and it's definitely a peculiar taste. Not a lot of people like goalie, but I personally love it. I love the pressure.
What else is it about goalie that you love being able to? I mean, I know whenever I was 11, 12 years old and I put on the tools of ignorance, as they say, as a catcher, there were a lot of people questioning my mental ability and I might be crazy. What is it that about, suiting up and being the goalie that you really enjoy?
I love being a leader and I also love helping my team. So being able, because you're really a commander out there, like you can see, from my point of view, you can see the entire field, everything that's happening in front of you. So, it's your job to communicate to the defensive players, like, hey, watch this girl coming in or watch this crease roll. It's really important I just love being that leader. I love helping my team and communicating with my team, especially as a goalie, your team respects you and they come to you for things. And so I just love that aspect of it as well.
Now you're a senior, you're looking to hopefully potentially play at the next level. Lacrosse is the fastest growing sport, not only in the area, but in the country.
Mhm.
But there's still a lot of people and a lot of IQ that needs to be examined and learned about the sport. What drew you to lacrosse in the first place, and why?
Honestly, I was a swimmer for a really long time and I was always good, but I was never great. And I always wanted to be great. You grow up and your parents always tell you you're special, but as a sport, you can really tell what separates the good from the great. And I always wanted that. And I remember I just quit swimming, and my dad told me, he's like, you need to join a sport. Like I get you don't want to do swimming, that's fine, but you need to do a sport. And lacrosse program at Boardman had just started, and so as a freshman, I entered in that year. I did not know that I was going to be a goalie. And that year actually got cut for me because that was COVID.
Yep.
That was my freshman year. So my sophomore year, when we had a season, there was a senior goalie ahead of me. She didn't like it, but she was very, very good. But she was going to be graduating. So my coach was like, hey, like, does anybody want to try to be goalie? And I just had this like voice in my head saying like, just do it. And ever since then, I've loved it ever since.
You mentioned that this is a very young program at Boardman,
Mhm.
one that you have placed a foundational brick on, obviously, with all the success that you've had in the crease and in the cage. So, I mean, where do you want this program to go? Where do you expect it to go? And how can you help potentially get them there with the last, 3-4 weeks of the season?
Mhm. Definitely, as you mentioned before, lacrosse is the fastest growing sport. And as we can see in Cleveland and in the Erie areas and the Columbus areas, lacrosse is huge. I mean, I've been to so many tournaments down there where people come from all over the country just to, get that college search going, to get colleges looking at them. And I think in our area, it's definitely started to hit, especially in Canfield. They've had a very good program. But as it's growing, I've heard, I'm going to be helping they're creating it's called 224 Club. and it's basically all the counties around us and all this like the little areas around us like Youngstown, Poland, Canfield. They're all getting together and starting a club team because personally for me, my club team was an hour and a half away. That was
Wow.
the closest one. There's like nothing around here for it. So I'm just helping build and like place these building blocks for that future because Boardman, Canfield, Poland, we could be, I mean, state winners in time, just like Columbus is. So it's just building that up and helping and giving the right training for it.
That's incredible to be able to build from that 224 corridor outward and hopefully bring in some major awards. Okay, so we hear about lacrosse, and we're going to end with a question here on the lacrosse side of things. Ty Bartell wants to know, with all the new eyes shifting to lacrosse recently, what are some of the big misinterpretations about lacrosse as a sport that you've discovered over the past few years?
People consider it, people actually, girls and boys lacrosse is very different. And I would say that that's one of the bigger misconceptions is because there's a lot of different rules in that, but they're both equally fun to watch. I think honestly, people might see, oh, it's too much of soccer, it's too much of hockey, it's like a mix of all sports. They definitely, the two things is that boys and girls lacrosse is very different and that it's a very fun sport to actually watch and it's all technique and it's honestly a really beautiful sport. So I think honestly, as it's getting bigger, the two biggest misconceptions is that boys and girls is different and it's fun to watch actually.
Where do you learn more about lacrosse? Do you find yourself watching it on television? I know people that want to learn more about baseball that maybe didn't, grow up with a baseball coach in their household or down the street. They watch a lot of baseball and they get kind of the narrative from the announcers. How do you educate yourself on the sport and essentially how do you get yourself better if you're in a spot by yourself?
Definitely through like even small stuff like Instagram Reels. I see it all the time over there, and it's just there's so many coach videos online about like the tiny stuff, like how to do this dodge around a defender, or just like one on like wall ball. There's so much on the internet now because there's so much to learn about the sport, and people love learning about a sport and finding new ways to do different things. As I've seen even on like ESPN too, they're like doing all the college games and just like on Instagram, I see a bunch of like how-to videos. So it's honestly been really fun. You can just go online and find so many detailed videos to each different position on the field.
This is incredible. So you're one of the most popular guests we've had because they're delivering questions for you, Ava. Tim Figley chimes in and says, "Who's your favorite college lacrosse team?"
I really love, or you have to love Boston. I mean, the girls' Boston lacrosse team is they're a powerhouse out there.
So, I mean, from a standpoint where you want to land, you mentioned that you want to go on and potentially play at the next level.
Mhm.
It's tough because there aren't many teams around here
Mhm.
from a lacrosse standpoint. Who would you want to play for? I mean, do you have teams there that you're actively going out and presenting yourself and like almost reverse recruiting yourself out there to try to get on the teams? And how important is that to you at the next level to go to play, a sport in college?
I actually just recently emailed YSU because they have a very, very good lacrosse program. So I just emailed them recently, and I would love to even have the opportunity to talk to them. But I've reached out to a couple other D2s, such as like Malone and Edinburgh and stuff like that. So I have some offers, but I really would love to play at the next level.
So naturally, with college, you're a student athlete, the same
Mhm.
as you are in high school. What things, I mean, you come from a family full of just brilliance. I'm sure that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What do you want to do potentially for a career someday? And what do you want to study in college?
I'm definitely looking at the business journalism side of things. It's definitely, as you know, my father. He was a journalist for a long time. He runs a brand company, so obviously I have a lot of that in me, and I'm really passionate about that. So I'm trying to go somewhere in that and find my niche.
I like it. If you could pick one corporation or brand that you'd love to be able to control the marketing aspect of it, what would it be and why?
Hmm, that's a pretty tough question. Sorry, you can see my cat.
I love it.
I think I would really love to do maybe I know it's a quite a big corporation, but maybe like Ulta Beauty or something like that. I just feel like they're kind of getting out of touch with more younger generations as they're coming up, and definitely advertise to girls more my age instead of always reaching out to the older generation. I feel like I would love to do that.
I love it. And that's off the beaten path. Usually with that question, we get Google, Dick's Sporting Goods, stuff like that.
Mhm.
I dig that. Very, very cool. All right. So from your perspective, let's get to know Ava a little better. What is your favorite subject in school?
Sorry. I love English. I'm in actually AP Literature and Composition right now. I've taken both AP Englishes. I just love reading. I love just learning about. You can learn so much history through reading as well. And I've had nothing but amazing English teachers who've helped me and develop my writing style. So definitely English.
Do you pack or buy at school?
I do both.
Okay, what is the number one lunch at Boardman High that you will not miss, and unless there was tragedy in the family?
It's either the Papa John's pizza they bring in, or it's the tater tots and like the like pancake waffles. Those are so good.
Wow. Okay, that's a first. I don't think we've ever had that on the show. I dig it. Okay, who is the number one friend to Ava that you want to give a shout out right now?
Zoe Wen, she's actually the other powerhouse on my Boardman team. She had 6 goals last night. She's my best friend. So yeah, Zoe.
All right. What is the one sport that people would not believe that you would actually want to play if you had the time to play it?
Rugby.
Rugby.
That's a dope sport that's not around here.
I can't believe Dad would be down for that.
Probably not, but it's I mean it's an insane sport.
Oh, it's crazy. We got state championships around the 330 in rugby too. So that is a tough sport. As a dad myself, if my daughter ever came to me and said she wanted to play rugby, we'd have to have a little chat. What are the things that you want to accomplish? I mean, obviously everybody has goals in their life, awards or starting a family, stuff like that. What are some of the things that you want to do down the road that maybe you want to get out on the World Wide Web here, so people can look in 20 years and say, hey, she actually did that?
I would definitely. I've been thinking a lot lately. I think I would like to take over my dad's company and definitely push that forward, especially into the new generation. Not calling my dad old, but to like really reach out to these brand new companies that will be starting. There's so many more entrepreneurships being created more and more these days, and being able to reach out to those and just do an empire of just so many small-owned businesses, because that's what really runs this country. So I think definitely helping out with that, taking over that, and reaching out to small businesses.
I like that. That's phenomenal. What is the best pregame meal for lacrosse?
Best pregame meal, pre-workout.
Just a pre-workout.
Yeah, I just
get you hyped up.
Yep, I just have to get all that, because I usually feel kind of dead before on game days, and I always have to take that to get myself ready, because it's usually an action-packed goal. I'm usually getting 40 shots per game, so
that's a lot. We had that conversation the other night. I mean, do you see that as an opportunity? I mean, some people would see that and go, that's just a lot of work, and get frustrated with what the teammates and the game plan, the strategy. But it seems like you see that as an opportunity to shine, and I like that.
No, I obviously it's tough, and sometimes it does weigh down on me, especially as more and more shots get going. But I also just love it. Like, I love a lot of action down on defense. Obviously, it's not great for the team always, but I really truly do love it. And I just I love sometimes when the girls just give it right to my stick on accident, I'll go, thank you. Like I just love getting down there and having action and showing the other team that I'm a really, really good goalie.
From a standpoint of being a competitor, what is the thing that you're most competitive in that's not lacrosse?
It's not lacrosse. I would say definitely probably my writing. I love, showing people my writing and being like, hey, is this good? So that they feed my ego a little bit. But so I think definitely I'm most competitive about that.
So I know Dad's competitive. How competitive do you and Dad get when you're talking about things off the out of the cage and off the pitch, so to speak? How competitive do you and Dad get?
We get pretty competitive, but when it comes to sports, especially like the NBA and NFL, we have the same taste. So we really don't have to compete against each other against that stuff. But we do get pretty competitive about other things like I don't know, we usually will have who can tell the funniest story or something like that. Just tiny little stuff, nothing major. We usually agree on the same things.
I like it. All right. So from a standpoint of where you want to go, and your max potential, like everybody, I'm sure you'll start reading books and here you hit your max and Where are you? Where do you feel you are, and compared to your max potential in lacrosse?
So I started as a sophomore, which is incredibly late for
Mhm.
lacrosse. And the girl who, when I first joined club, I had no idea what I was doing. The girl I got matched, who I felt like I was pretty equally matched with, had been playing since fifth grade. And at first I saw that as a downside, but as I matured since then, I've realized that the fact that I was able to become right now second in state in Division 1 as a senior and only had 2 years of experience, I feel like I'm not even reaching like my ceiling of what I can get to. And that especially with how many shots I get, I believe I have around 200 saves in the season right now, which is #1 in state. I feel like I'm nowhere near my potential, and if I am given the opportunity, I can, break some ceilings.
So, are you familiar with the term elevator pitch?
Yes.
Okay, so now's your opportunity. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for every college coach out there to explain why you are the future of their team at the next level. Go ahead.
I'm the future of your team, whoever you may be, because as I mentioned before, I only have 2 years experience and I'm already at like second in state, #1 in state in saves. I'm top 50 nationally. I love this sport and I love being goalie. It's what I'm so passionate about. I go to practice dedicated. I help my teammates. I am a leader, but I can also listen to my girls and understand, hey, when something is too much or we need to work on something else, or even when I personally need to work on something else. I'm always ready to learn. I'm always ready to be able to be taught new things. I just love learning new aspects of this game, and I love this game so much. I'm so passionate about it, and I can't wait to just keep going and max my full potential with whoever college wants me.
Drilled it. Absolutely drilled it. That might be the best elevator pitch I've ever heard. That's incredible. Nice job, young lady.
Thank you.
Ty chiming in. I'm going to kind of tail end off of this one as we typically end with segments about your family and your background. It seems your dad has had a huge influence on your life. What's the most memorable / impactful advice he's ever given to you?
I think the most memorable thing, especially from both of my parents, my mom included, is just their support. Whatever I may decide, whatever I want to do with my life, like anything like that, my parents have just always been 100% behind me for no matter what, whether even if they disagreed with it, even if they're like, especially when I did quit swimming, my dad was kind of upset with me, but he still supported me in that decision. So honestly, I think the most impactful thing is that my parents have just been behind me 100%.
All right. So I'm going to tailspin off of that and ask you the question of, out of your role models, your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
What one kind of not bit of advice, but one piece of your parent, each one of them, would you take and you would say that is one of your strengths as you lead on the next adventure of your life here in a few weeks when you graduate?
I think from my dad, I would take his ability to sell himself, which I've been doing this entire interview, but that ability. And then from my mother, I would definitely take her strength because she's just been through so much in her life and she's always been able to persevere through it. So I think that's what I take from both my parents.
Obviously, I know school has been a huge impact on you as well. Who's been or who are some of the favorite teachers and educators that you've had along the way?
Definitely my English teacher, Mrs. Piper from 8th grade, my senior teacher, English also, Mr. Shirtliff, and then I think my history teacher from 8th grade, Mr. Nypaver, are definitely three that I've kept their advice in my head and, just enjoyed being in their class so much.
All right, last question for you. I promise. I know you've been on a little bit longer than I anticipated, and then I promised you, but you've been awesome. What piece of advice, as a young lady going to college, would you give to the younger Ava, maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, for these young ladies that see you as a role model nowadays? What advice would you give them, and what advice would you give yourself had you been 5, 6, 7 years old?
I think for the other girls out there, not me, I think I would say it's never too late to start doing what you love. You might feel like you're behind and you might seem like, oh, these people have been playing for years or whatever it is you're doing. It's never too late to chase what you really want to do. Because if you really want to do, you will put that work in and you will have that talent and you will get where you want to go. And then
Hey, go ahead. Keep going. Keep rolling. Roll with it, sister.
Honestly, no, that's the same advice I give to myself. So just don't give up.
I can appreciate you so much. We're so proud of you. You've come so far in such a small frame of time. I can only wish that you have just as much success in the next 50 years that you had in the last 3 in the sport of lacrosse. Ava, you're a role model. You're a hero to many of the young ladies and young kids out there. Continue doing what you do, and I'm sure that the sky's the limit for you. Thanks for stopping by the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. There she goes. Ava HEDRICH, just amazing young lady. And that's the most important part. As great as she is, and she's state ranked across the board in lacrosse as a goalie and one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the entire 330 area, which is important. She's just as good of a person. So thank you to Ava for stopping by the show here today on the YSN Power Hour presented by Toyota of Warren. We're going to take a break. We come back. Still more. We got Dwayne Pavkovich coming up